Here's the good news. After 22 years of coaching, I know what you need. I know how to get you from having, wanting, seeking more knowledge to actually succeeding at a whole new level. What you need is two things. Number one, you need some kind of structure in your life. Instead of just wandering around aimlessly, you need to be focused. You notice when you're focused, you get more done, yes? So you need to have structure and you need to have focus. And when you have those two things, you'll perform at a much higher level. Does that make sense? And at the end of my presentation, I'm going to give you a very, very quick introduction to a structure that I've created that is designed specifically for people who are self-employed, self-managing. Anybody who gets paid based on results, so when you're more effective, you make more money, that's who I work with primarily. And so I'll give you an overview of a quick view of this structure that I've created. Over 6,000 people have used it. The results have been absolutely incredible. And you know, it's not going to be a sales pitch, but hopefully at least some of you will go, you know, I think that guy knows what he's talking about. And come and talk to me about this structure and how you can get involved in it. If it doesn't call to you, great. But if it does, I want to take some action. Are you good with that? Okay. So since I'm going to be teaching these principles, I've introduced myself at least. My name's Andrew Barber-Starkey, as Joe mentioned. I've been coaching full-time since 1993. I think I'm in here somewhere. Always working with self-employed business owners. In fact, in 1993, think back to the 1993. No computers, no internet back then for us, right? Try and start a business that way. When I decided to become a coach, I had never heard of the profession before. I thought I invented coaching. Seems funny now, right? There's millions and millions of coaches. It was 3 months before I met somebody that said, I know another guy who's doing some coaching. He's coaching in relationships. But that's how early it was. And I have a strong recommendation for you. Don't start a business that nobody knows what it is. Because it was really hard for a long time. But I love what I do. So I've been doing it full-time for 21 years. And in 1999, I was awarded the designation of Master Certified Coach, which is an industry designation. So it's a worldwide designation. There's, out of, I don't know how many million coaches are out there, there's, to this day, I just got my certification renewed, 572 certified coaches worldwide. That's pretty cool, huh? And I got mine in 1999, was one of the early ones. So I designed and led a program called the Success Directs Coaching Program. How many of you know who Harv Eker is, by the way? Show of hands. Yeah, quite a few. He's retired now, right? He did his thing and grew up. But I designed a coaching program for him. And then in 2004, I went on and formed my own program. And the program that I've created, the one I designed for Harv and then ultimately became the Pro Coach system, it's based on 7 principles. The whole program that I've created is designed around the 7 principles I'm going to teach you tonight. So I'm going to give them to you, and you know, you can do what you want with them. But I want to say about them, these are not rocket science. They're really simple. In fact, we have a rocket right here. It's not not what we need to make them go. They're not that innovative, but they're really, really powerful. And there's so much information out there. You have to select and identify which is the right things to do, right? I mean, if you walk into the business bookstore and start looking around, oh my God, there's so many different things, you know, how to do this or that or the other. These 7 are the core. Every one of these 7 will absolutely take you to a whole new level. So you ready for that? Well, you got to put them into practice, yes? Okay, we'll see, I guess. So let's take a look. Accelerator number 1. Okay, now I know this is true for you. How many of you are really, really busy? Got a busy life going on, yes? Almost everybody. How many of you feel like you don't have enough time to get everything done? Is that all? Surely more of you, come on. It's like there's so much going on. And how many of you feel like if you could get more done, you could make more money? It's not true. Well, how do we just got to look outside to see how it goes. It's not. How do I know it's not true? Because isn't it true that there's people that are working half as hard as you that are making 10 times more money than you are, honestly? It's not about how hard you work. It's about what? It's about what you do when you're working, right? Doing the right things. So that brings us to our first principle, prioritizing. You've got a certain amount of time in a day. What are you going to do with it? How could you use that time most effectively? And there's a principle, some of you may be familiar with this, called the Pareto principle, or it's called the 80-20 rule. And essentially the 80-20 rule says that in any category, in anything, there's the many and the few. So for example, it was originally discovered by Wilfredo Pareto in Italy. He discovered that 80% of the wealth in Italy was held by 20% of the families. And then he discovered that was true elsewhere. And then they sort of expanded that and discovered that 20% of the streets get 80% of the traffic. You're going, yeah, I live on one of those, right? So and the other 80% of streets just deal with 20% of the traffic. 20% of salespeople make 80% of sales. You've heard that, right? You want to be one of those. And 20% of your clients are responsible for 80% of your business in a typical business. And for those of you who haven't read the 80-20 principle, it is one of Dan's really big things. He's very big on that. And so in this realm, what I want to say is 20% of your effort will generate 80% of your results. So let's take a look at that. What does it mean? It means, now, let's see how this thing works. Did I put it in the middle? No, I got a little pointer here somewhere. Don't want to do anything wrong. No, you see what I mean? Okay. Don't I have there's a pointer. Okay. So here we're going to put 20% of your effort, 80% of your results. And what does that mean? That means the other 80% of your effort generates this piddling little amount here. So doesn't it make sense that you want to make sure that you're doing the right things down here to get those results, yes? To maximize those results. And we can look at, like, does this principle even work? Look at the math. Imagine that you earn $1,000 in 10 hours. Okay, that would be how much an hour? $100 an hour, right? Or would it be? No. The truth is that you generate 80% of that money, if you use the principle, $800 of it in just 2 hours. So you earn $400 an hour when you're working on your high priority tasks and activities. Which means that you generate $200 in the other 8 hours. Now you're only generating $25 an hour. So in other words, it's not just a disparity between 80 and 20 and 5 times. No. When you focused on the 20% activities, you earn 16 times as much per hour. How many of you think it would be a good idea to do more of that? Yeah. Get zeroed in on those things. So you want to be spending your time on those high payoff activities. First of all, you got to identify what they are, and then make sure you're working on them, which is where self-employed people are so bad. How many of you don't do the things you know you should do, even though you know they'll make you money? Again, every hand should be going up. Because I can't imagine you're stupid enough to not know the things that you should be doing. You're just not doing them. So, well, how many of you have the thought that you could do a better job of managing your time? Let's look at that one. Okay, just about everybody in the room. I want to tell you something. There is no such thing as time management. Did you know that? Think about that. There's no thing. You look really confused. There is no such thing as time management. How do you manage time? What are you going to do? Put it in a box and move it around? See, the truth is that calling it time management is a cop-out. What is it really? That's still a cop-out. What is it? It's self-management. Thank you. It's self-management. It's not time management. The only thing you can manage is yourself. But we don't want to confront the fact that we don't manage ourselves very well. So we put it out there and call it time management. No. You have exactly the same amount of time in your life as Barack Obama. He gets a heck of a lot done, more done than you. Right? Or you get the same amount of time as the bum sleeping on the street. Everybody, we all get the same amount of time. It's what you do with it and how you prioritize it makes a difference. So supposing you were to really prioritize, like identify the strategic actions that will make you money and actually follow through and spend your time doing that instead of just doing whatever you feel like, which is why you started your own business, of course, in the first place. If you did, suppose you did that, how much more money do you think? Raise your hand if you think you could double your income. Raise your hand if you think you could triple your income even. Yeah, and then many, many times more, right?